Good afternoon, etc. guys. This is Manga by Volume, and today we're going to be doing our October 2017 comic book and graphic novel haul. I've got a pretty decent stack of single issues and a plethora of trade paperbacks that we're going to go through today. But starting out, here is the Image First, issue number 1 of Paper Girls. This was graciously packaged in with one of my orders from the Omnibus collectors group. Paper Girls is a fantastic series, similar kinda to like Stranger Things, written by Brian K. Vaughan with beautiful art by Cliff Chiang. Place that there. And next up we got some DC back issues, starting out with Arkham Asylum Living Hell number 6. This is a freaking awesome cover. Kind of freaked the cashier out when I brought it up to her. But this is actually written by Dan Slott, and I have read this whole story thanks to my local library, and it's a pretty great Arkham tale, featuring, of course, the demon, Etrigan. But great cover. That guy, it kind of looks like Jesse from Breaking Bad, doesn't he? Anyways, yeah, awesome cover. Had to pick it up. One of my favorite Batman stories. And next up we have Streets of Gotham, number 17. This is, of course, a Dustin Nguyen cover. This is written by Paul Dini. Have not read this run, but I gotta keep picking up these covers because they just look amazing. So I love Dustin Nguyen's art, and yeah, just had to pick this up. It was like $1, so I mean. Alright, next up we have Will Eisner's The Spirit, number 1. This is, of course, drawn, it might be written also, by Darwin Cook, the late great writer-artist. And I actually have a couple other Darwin Cook stuff to show you guys today, but so far this is The Spirit number 1. Next up we got All-Star Superman number 2, the great story by Grant Morrison and drawn by Frank Quitely. All-Star Superman number 4. And All-Star Superman number 9. Eventually, I want to get this whole series in single issues because it is one of the best Superman stories out there. So, more current issues, but still a series that I'm trying to catch up on. We have the Dark Knight's Metal tie-in and main event. We got Dark Days, the casting. I was finally able to find this. This is one of the... This is part of the prelude to Metal. I still need to get the Forge, but for now we got this with a nice holographic cover. Love these. And next up we have one of the tie-ins. We got Gotham Resistance Part 2. This is Nightwing, issue number 29. Pretty cool cover. We got the Batman who laughs in the background, cackling. And next up we got the event itself, Dark Knight's Metal number 2. I don't have a pull list, so I still am missing number 3 and a few others. But I'm just kind of picking up the event as I go. We got Batman the Red Death number 1. This is one of the tie-ins for the various Dark Knights. This is basically Flash Batman, or evil Flash Batman. And we got Batman the Murder Machine, which is evil Cyborg Batman. And finally, Batman the Dawnbreaker, which, as you could probably guess, is evil Green Lantern Batman. Next up we have our last DC single issue, that is Super Sons number 8. I've heard amazing things about this series, and when I saw this cover, drawn by the wonderfully talented Dustin Nguyen, I had to pick it up. I do plan on picking up the first trade very shortly. It is a series that I'm dying to get into because I love Damian Wayne, and I love the direction that they're taking with these two characters. So next up, we have the only Marvel book that I picked up, just because the hype was kind of high. And then, I mean, it's not bad, but anyways, here we go. It's Marvel Legacy number 1. This is the Fried Pie variant cover. Looks pretty cool. I have read this, and while it was fairly good. It wasn't really anything that blew me away. It's like 20 pages shorter than DC Rebirth was, and it wasn't anywhere near as good in my opinion, but it's all right. It's probably one of the better Marvel books they've put out recently. Next up, I lied about the last of the DC thing. This isn't really DC. We have Bionicle issue number 1. I am trying to complete this series, so I'm picking them up as I find them. Thankfully, I finally found number 1. We got a second copy of issue number 14, which is that cool Mask of Light cover. Got that to frame. And then we got issues number 16. I believe this is the beginning of the Metro Nui arc. And issue number 17. So that does it for single issues. I'm going to cut out and then show you guys all the trades that I picked up. Alright, so starting out we have all of my Second and Charles pickups for the month. The one new book that I got from Second and Charles, that was God Country Volume 1, or I guess it's its own self-contained thing, but this is the fried pie variant. And I was going to get this anyways, but this cover kind of threw me over the edge. I just love how it looks compared to the typical one, but this is a pretty good looking book. The art's really nice. I love the coloring. And I can't wait to read it. It is God Country by, I think it's Donny Cates is the author. And yeah, so that is the one new book I got from Second and Charles. Next up we have all of my pre-owned stuff I got from them this month, including a legendary run on Thor. This is the J. Michael Straczynski Thor Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. This contains his full, I think it's like 15 issues or something like that. Maybe more. His full run in 3 volumes. And I got these for less than 20 bucks, which is pretty good considering how much the omnibus is going for nowadays. So I've been wanting to read this for a while, and now I don't have to wait for the omnibus to go either get reprinted or whatever. Alright, so next up with a couple of DC books, we got the DC Universe, The Stories of Alan Moore. This is a nice thick trade with a bunch of random Alan Moore stories about DC characters. This is including Superman for the Man Who Has Everything, Superman, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, and the amazing Killing Joke. Yep, that's right. This is the first, or the original printing of this trade, so it does have the Killing Joke inside of it, which is one of the best Batman stories. It's kind of controversial nowadays, but it's nice to have it in a trade paperback. And of course, there's some other random stuff that I haven't heard of necessarily, but I am looking forward to dive into because Alan Moore is one of the greats. Not that I need to tell anyone that. But next up we got Aquaman Volume 1 from the New 52. This is Jeff Johns and Ivan Ray's run, and looks great, and fantastic art. Heard a lot of good things about this run, can't wait to dive into it. Aquaman Volume 1, The Trench. Next up, and lastly for Second and Charles, we have Catwoman Volume 1. This is Trail of the Catwoman. This is written and drawn by Darwin Cook for part of it, and then written by Ed Brubaker and drawn by Darwin Cook for the last half. This includes Selina's Big Score and Catwoman number 1 through 9. I know Volume 2 of this is kind of hard to come by, but I'm glad to start the run. Hopefully I'll find Volume 2 eventually for a decent price. So that does it for the Second and Charles. Let's go into the stuff that I got from the Omnibus Collectors Facebook group. Alright, so first things first, we have one image book that is Snot Girl Volume 1. I have this entire volume in single issues. I love Brian Lee O'Malley, and Leslie Hung's art is just to die for. It's a very cutesy, colorful book, but don't let that appearance fool you. It does have some dark themes, and it's a really fun read. Really big fan of this series. And next up is probably one of the best deals that I've gotten in a while, and that is for $50 shipped, I was able to get all of Transmetropolitan. That's volumes 1 through 10. And this is a series by Warren Ellis about kind of like journalism in the future, I guess. It's a very quirky sense of humor, and it's a series I've been wanting to read for a while now, and this was the perfect price to put me over the edge. Here, I'll show off all the individual covers. Volume 2, Volume 3, that one's fun. Volume 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally Volume 10. So that does it for the used books I picked up from the Facebook group. And last but not least, we are going to get into the in-stock trades haul. Alright, so starting out with the DC trades, we have DC: The New Frontier, written and drawn by Darwin Cook. There's a nice thick trade, and it looks like it's the new printing because it has the new DC logo on there. Looks amazing. I've heard great things about this. And in addition to this, I actually picked up the Blu-ray, the animated movie on, this is the Steelbook. And yeah, looks awesome. Got this from Best Buy. I actually activated that already. Sorry about that, guys. But yep, that's a nice pair. That is the last Darwin Cook related thing from this haul, unfortunately. But next up we have Batman: The Black Mirror. This is, I believe, also the new printing because of that logo there. But this is an awesome, awesome book. Written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Francisco Francavilla and Jock. Jock is the artist for Image's Witches, and Francesco Francavilla is the artist for Afterlife with Archie, which is a phenomenal horror series about Archie and Jughead and the gang in the zombie apocalypse. But next up we have the trade for All-Star Superman. Fantastic Superman story by Morrison and Quitely. And lastly, for normal DC, we have Superman Birthright. This is a Superman origin story written by Mark Waid. Pretty thick book. I believe this is, I'll say it's like 9 issues. Some pretty cool artwork also. Alright, so that does it for regular DC Universe type stuff, but next up we have a couple of Wildstorm books, starting out with Midnighter, the complete Wildstorm series, written by Garth Ennis. This is a huge book. I believe it's just over 500 pages, containing, I think it's over 20 issues. Now, yeah, just over 20 issues. We got 1 through 20, and a little offshoot there. Pretty cool. I actually got the first issue of that a while back. if you go back in one of my older hauls. But next up we got Planetary Book 1. I did sell my Planetary Omnibus in favor of getting these trades. This is the first volume, but it should finish off with volume 2 next year. And if you look at these Wildstorm trades together, they match up pretty nice. They look great on the shelf together. Love Planetary. And Warren Ellis. So, lastly for Wildstorm, I got The Wildstorm, also written by Warren Ellis. This is volume 1 of the new Wildstorm reboot. We finally got the trade out for it. And looks pretty awesome. Unfortunately, we don't have the trade dress doesn't really match the other classic series, but it's still pretty awesome to have. And lastly for DC, we have The Flintstones, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Now I have read a few issues of this so far, and it is one of the funniest comics that I've read in recent years. If you have even a passing interest in the Flintstones or even like just social commentary, this is a good comic to read. This is part of DC's new Hanna-Barbera line. I do plan on picking up the Future Quest stuff and maybe Scooby Apocalypse sometime in the future. But that does it for the DC stuff. Now moving on, we have Vertigo, Image, and Dark Horse, and some other indies. Alright, so for Vertigo from Dark Horse, I picked up Trillium, written and drawn by Jeff Lemire, one of my favorite artists and favorite writers. Looks amazing. It's a sci-fi story about someone in 1991 and someone in 3797. So I am looking forward to reading this. I love time travel-y type stuff. Steins Gate's one of my favorite series, and I can't wait to check out Jeff Lemire's take on time travel. So next up we have Greg Rucka's The Old Guard from Image. This is book 1. This is the DCBS variant for the cover there. And I've heard a lot of great things about this series as well. This is about a society of immortals who have basically lived through most of America's great wars and even farther back. And this is them living in modern society where surveillance and things and social media have basically made them, it's outed them. And people are starting to discover the old guard. And they're basically on the run. So I'm looking forward to reading that as well. Next up from Image, we also have Rock Candy Mountain, written and drawn by Kyle Starks, who is hilarious. If you've ever read Sex Castle, which is also an Image book, that's written and drawn by Kyle Starks as well. It is hilarious, and I will read anything that he writes now. But yeah, that's volume 1 of Rock Candy Mountain. And next up, another Lemire book, we have Royal City volume 1. This is also the DCBS variant. And of course, as with any Jeff Lemire book, I am incredibly excited to read this, to check this out. Just gotta find the time. Alright, next up, another Lemire book, this time from Dark Horse, and that is Black Hammer, Volume 1, Secret Origins. This has art by Dean Ormston, and his art style is really, really great. This is about, like, if a bunch of superhero archetypes are basically transported to a town out in the boonies, and they have to live with each other. Looks pretty great. Alright, next up from Dark Horse as well, we have Hench Girl by Kristen Goodsnuck. I think that's how you pronounce that. But this is about a hench girl. She works for a supervillain, and it's a dead-end job, and I don't know, I love the art style. It's super cutesy. And I believe this was a webcomic, so you might still be able to check that out. But pretty excited to read this. This one's been on my radar for a while. Looks like a lot of fun. Nice thick trade also. Lots of pages. So next up, I wanted to try a couple of books from a couple of other indie publishers that I hadn't checked out before. And I settled on Aftershock and Action Lab. Starting out, I think this is probably the more famous Aftershock title. That is Animosity. Picked up Volume 1, and around that same time, Volume 2 just got released. So I picked up both of these. This is about if all around the world, one day animals just woke up. They gained sentience and human-like intelligence, and what they would do, how it would affect society. Needless to say, this has a lot of horror elements, and I am very much looking forward to reading this. This has some fantastic artwork. And I'll probably upload like a first impressions type thing for this. And then if I like it, I'll definitely check out some other Aftershock books. But next up from Action Lab, we have two books. We have Medicine, Volume 1 from, this is actually written by Jeff Dyer, who is a member of the Omnibus Facebook group. And he posted about this book a while back, and I figured I'd check it out. Looks kind of neat. This is about a group of doctors that are blackmailed into treating supervillains, which is a pretty cool concept. The only thing I do have to say is that it's pretty thin. There's only 3 issues in here, which I kind of understand for like an indie book, but it was, I think I paid around the same price as I did for this as I did for Hench Girl on In-Stock Trades. So hopefully it lives up to that. I am looking forward to checking this out and do a recommendation or whatever. But next up is, lastly, for all of my In-Stock Trades haul and trades this month, or last month, picked up a book called Spencer and Locke. And this is basically Calvin and Hobbes, but Calvin grows up to be a detective, and he still has the imaginary friend. And as you can see, they have absolutely no shame in that premise, because the first couple of issues, or first couple of pages, resemble that art style. But I've heard great things about the series as well. This is Calvin and Hobbes was my childhood, so I'm very much looking forward to reading this. It does seem to have a pretty dark tone considering, but yeah, so that does it for my trades, and I do have one more thing I'm very, very excited to show you guys. Alright, so lastly, I ordered a figure from Mondo about 6 months ago, like back in, I don't know, May. And it finally got here yesterday, and I am so excited to finally pop this open. This is the Ramona Flowers collectible figure from Scott Pilgrim from Mondo. And yeah, let's pop this open and I'll show you guys what she looks like. First things first, we got a little display here. Some nice concept art by Brian Lee O'Malley himself. And there's the figure. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get my pre-order in time to get the... there was like a Mondo exclusive version that had Scott Pilgrim peeking out of her bag. But I'm just glad to have been able to get it at all, because I love Scott Pilgrim. And there's not nearly enough merchandise for it. Let's take her out of the box. I'll show you guys what she looks like. Let's see if there's anything else I missed in here. No. You can see Scott Pilgrim hanging on for dear life. So I'll just stick that right there. So, very cool figure. Very high quality figure. And I'll cut to... Also, it came with this super cute, super cool metal pin of Ramona flowers, and I love it. Okay, thanks. So this is my first time ordering a figure from Mondo, and I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. This is a great, great figure. She comes with a couple of accessories, nothing major, but she's got a baseball bat, extra hand to hold that, and a bag, and a sledgehammer. Her figure herself has a lot of detail. It's sculpted very nicely. And, yeah, I kind of regret not finding out about it in time to get the variant that has Scott Pilgrim peeking his head out of this bag. That would have been really cool. But hopefully we get a Scott Pilgrim figure from them sometime in the future. But for now, this was totally worth what I paid, and, yeah, I'm happy to finally have some Scott Pilgrim merchandise to show. That isn't like a pop figure, because I hate pop figures. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, this is Manga by Volume. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.